All right, so we are looking on our pink paper on the back on question 14. Before we get down there, let's look at the instructions up top. It says complete the similarity statement for the similar figures. That's part 1. Then, part 2, find the scale factor. Next, part 3, write proportions. And then 4, solve for the missing lengths x and y. So there are many parts to these questions. So let's go down to number 14. The first thing we're going to do is write the similarity statement. And for that, we're going to see which of these angles correspond. So these little angle markers, they tell you which angles are congruent to each other. So since this has a single marker on F, and there's a single marker on G, that tells you that F and G are congruent. So F and G are corresponding. So my suggestion is that you mark those with the same colored pencil. All right. Then you look over here. Angle D has 2 markers. So that is showing you that angle D is congruent to angle J. So I would shade D and J with the same color. And then angle E and H match together, but I'm not going to mark them with the color. Those will be the 2 that are uncolored. So the first thing we're asked to do is write our similarity statement. So F comes first. So F matches with G, because it's the same color. D matches with J. And E matches with H. So that's your similarity statement. Okay? Part 2 is to find your scale factor. So when we find our scale factor, we're going to put our image over our pre-image. Now, we have to be particular. To find a scale factor, we need numbers in both places. So if we look at this triangle, I've got an X and a 20 and a 16. If you can't see, just so you know, that's a 16. And in this triangle, I've got a 15 and an 18 and the letter Y. So I have to find corresponding parts that both have numbers. So you see, if I try to use this orange and blue, I've got a 16, but orange and blue over here has the letter Y. I can't use that. If I go from orange to no color, that's X. Orange to no color over here is 18. I can't use that. I have to use the no color with the blue because that has numbers in both places. So I'm going to get a different color here and mark that. I'm going to use EF and HG, the 15 and the 20, because those are my matching parts that both have numbers on them. So my image is 15, and my pre-image is 20. And then I'm going to simplify my fraction. If I'm good at that, I would divide both by 5, and that would be 3/4. And if I'm not so good at simplifying fractions, then I'm going to pick up my calculator, and I would type in 15 divided by 20, enter. I would go to the math button. I would press enter, enter, and there's my simplified fraction 3/4. Okay, so that tells me that 3/4, let me zoom back in here. That tells me that 3/4 is my scale factor. And that makes sense because my shape did a reduction. It got smaller. So it makes sense that I would multiply by 3/4. 3/4 is less than 1. All right, part 3, now we have to solve for X and Y. But that's going to be 2 separate problems. So first, let's focus on the X. So I'm going to come in here and mark side X with green. And now I need to look and see what corresponds with the X. Well, the X is between the orange and the no color. So over here, between orange and no color, is the 18. So the X and the 18 are going to make a fraction. I'm going to put x over 18. So now my other fraction has to be my sides that have numbers in them. So it's got to be the 20 and the 15. Since the x is on top, the 20, which came out of the same triangle, goes on top. And the 15, which is on the same triangle as the 18, goes on the bottom. Now, at this point, I'm going to show you a way. The way that works for all the problems is cross product, but it's not always the fastest way. So I'm going to show you cross product, then I'm going to show you a shortcut. So if I do my cross product, I would multiply 15 times x is 15x. And then I would multiply 18 times 20, which would be 360. And then I would come in here and divide both sides by 15. I would need to use a calculator for that. 360 divided by 15. And x would be equal to 24. All right, but here's a shortcut that some of you might be able to do, especially if you're good at fractions. I can come up here to 20 over 15, and I can simplify. 20 over 15 simplifies to 3/4. I already know that because of my, it simplifies to 4 over 3 because it's my scale factor upside down. So I can simplify that fraction. Now, once that fraction is simplified, I know my times tables. I know that 3 times 6 makes 18. So all I have to say is 4 times 6 makes what? 24. Bam, I'm done. I don't have to pick up a calculator at all. So if you're good with your times tables and you want to do the mental math, you may. Otherwise, you're going to do your cross products. All right, now we're going to go to y. So again, I'm going to use a colored pencil here. Let's see, I haven't used pink. Well, the page is pink. Let me grab my purple pen. So here's y. So y is between blue and orange. So y corresponds with 16. So I'm going to start with the fraction y over 16. And then I need to use the side that has numbers. So I need to use the 20 and the 15. But your order matters. Since the y is inside this triangle, the 15 is going to go on top because the y is on top. These came out of the same triangle, and the 20 came out of the triangle with the 16, so the 20 goes here. All right, the method that works all the time is cross product. 20 times y is 20y. All right, then 15 times 16, I got to grab a calculator for that. I get 240. Then I divide both sides by 20. Use my calculator again, and I get 12. Now, if you want to do it in mental math, take 15 over 20 and simplify it. 15 over 20 simplifies to 3/4. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 times 4 is 12. You're done. All right, now we're going to do 16 together. 16 is rather challenging. All right. They gave us a similarity statement. Triangle MNP is similar to triangle XYZ. So I'm going to use that statement to color code. So that means that M to N, first to second letter, matches with X to Y, first to second letter. And then NP, which is second and third letter, matches with YZ. And then first and last letter, MP, matches with first and last letter, XZ. And I'm going to color code to see all my corresponding parts. So you can see that this figure has been rotated. Okay. So look, we've got X's in both places. But that's okay. We're just going to set up our fractions with our matching parts. Red line, X plus 5. Red line, 30. If I started on the little triangle on top, I got to start on this little triangle. So blue line, 4x minus 10. Blue line segment over here, 75. That's how I'm going to set up my fraction. That's the hardest part, setting it up. Now, can't really do a shortcut here, so I'm going to do the cross product. So here's what this says. This says multiply 75 times all of x plus 5. So I'm going to write that as 75 parentheses x plus 5 equals. And then this side says multiply 30 by all of this 4x minus 10. So that's going to be 30 parentheses 4x minus 10. Now we have to do something that I hope you remember from Algebra 1 named distributing. So you multiply the 75 times the x, makes 75x, and then you pass the 75 times the 5, and 75 times 5 gives you 375. And then you have to distribute on the other side as well. 30 multiplied by 4x is 120x, and then 30 minus 10 is minus 300. All right, now I'm going to put another little paper under here just so I can solve my equation. So here's my equals. I got x's on both sides. So I'm going to minus 75x from both sides. And then I'm going to come out with 375 equals 45x minus 300. So now I'm going to add 300 to both sides. And I'm going to get 675 equals 45x. Pull this up. Last thing I'm going to do is divide by 45. And I did this once on my calculator earlier, so it comes out to 15. Now, I could take that 15, plug it in here and substitute, and then see if my scale factors work out correctly. And that's the way that I would check. So now you're going to be working with your partners on the rest of this sheet.